first item on the agenda are just some remarks from me, and we have a pretty robust agenda today. So what I did want to just bring you up to date on is that the acquisition of the circle was approved by the RTM on December 11th, and the vote was 70 in favor, 1 opposed, and 3 abstentions. So there is tremendous support from the town for this project, and I want to thank the RTM for the special meetings that they called and worked on this. There's a lot of stuff going on at this time of the year, and for them to put in that time, that extra time, is really appreciated. And I want to thank everyone that's worked on this project so far, from the town side. Our town staff has been unbelievably dedicated to this, and lots of boards and commissions have been working on it. And our attorneys, of course, have been going full out. And Jim Galen's probably taken a rest because he has been absolutely a partner through all of this. So just want to thank everybody for that. So next item on the agenda, we're going to have some remarks from Ed and from Tony.
I'll do the first half here. Tony Campanella, Public Works. Just an update on some of the maintenance items. The fence that had fallen over, about 50-foot of fence on the north side, the left side as you're driving up of 23A is repaired. We did that. Our talented staff did that. The transformer removals are completed. That was the day after our last meeting. That went really well. Shutdown was only like an hour and 15 minutes, and our initial cost estimate was 50, and the actual came in at 38. Way to go.
1,000.
Yeah, yes. Million.
Higher than a million.
I'm getting texts already.
Thousands are better. Hundreds are better.
Okay, the stable roof repair is complete. Looks very nice. The fall cleanup is complete, and DPW is going to be going in there over the winter, whenever we don't have snow, and removing some of the bigger piles of leaves. The landscaper, as they have done for a long, long time, just blew into the woods. So we're going to take kind of some easy targets where there's a bunch of leaves right near the roads and pull them down and truck them out of there. The summer landscaper services are done, finished up December 8th, and moved his equipment out and left everything very clean, very nice. And the snowplow contractor is ready to go. We hope we don't use him much, but he's prepared to go. That's all the updates I have, unless there's any questions.
Tony, the snowplow is on a per visit?
Per inch, yeah, per salt event, and then ranges of inches.
Okay.
The price is based on that.
Okay, but per event, not just a...
Correct, yes, yeah.
Hey, Tony, question on the
Oh, I'm
landscaper.
sorry.
No, landscaper removed all his equipment. Is that a permanent removal, or is that what he does every season?
Well, whatever we do next year, whatever happens next year, a plethora of things could happen. We could hire a landscaper and they just bring trailers in. We could hire someone, they give them a spot, or anything else could happen. So,
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, we're going to talk later about the pedestrians going in there. Is the plowing doing anything where the pedestrians might walk that's not a main road?
so the plow contract is for the main roads.
Yeah.
And for shoveling around the houses and the stables.
Okay.
But
Not for any of the rougher paths?
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it kind of stops at the, again, we don't have him doing the path down to the beach house, because that's kind of a gravel shell path. And if we need to jump in there for whatever reason, if that makes sense, we can do that. He's just on the paper. Anything else?
There's two more topics we're going to just cover today. First, the Great Island Accessway driveway. We do have movement right now on the drawings and the permit application. So come next week, December 26th and 27th, we'll be submitting to the EPC on the 26th, and the 27th, we'll be submitting to the planning and zoning our application. So that kicks off the regulatory process for approval for the drawings and for construction and permitting of the driveway access from Rings End Road to the traffic circle. We do have submittal to ARB, that's our third regulatory body in January, that'll be January 4th. And if you look at my calendar right now, between the meetings, the public hearings, the meetings, deadlines for publication and so on, it's going to take us out to possibly mid-February before the approval process from all three of the regulatory bodies are in our hand. That kind of gives you a flavor of where we stand right now. Any questions on that?
So that process that we approved last meeting, there was an A and a B. There's enough wiggle room in the approval process that we can make adjustments to whether we decide A or B as we go through the process?
Some of that direction is going to be provided also by ARB, the Architectural Review Board, on what they'd like to see out there to keep what they call the look of Great Island as you come up to that front entrance. And we've had some really informal preliminary discussions with them on that, and that is a point of emphasis they'd like us to make and make sure we pick the right approach when we do it. So we're going to have some guidance there.
Okay, but as we move, I'm sorry if this is a silly question. I just haven't done a ton of building recently. So if there was like the road's not going to change. That's very clear, right? It's just really like, is the pillar going to be set back a little bit more? But is that all just able to be administratively changed once we get through, if they decide to move it 3 feet instead?
I think that's going to be something that, as a staff, they could be able to adjust for us if we had to. If we found something while we were digging in the ground and we can't put it where we want, we needed to move it over, I believe administratively we should be able to.
Okay. So we wouldn't have to like start. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
They would want to see something of significant change.
Okay.
From what I've seen from being in front of them.
Thank you.
So Ed, going back to that, the A and the B, so we present to ARB and how does this work? We present both and we get some guidance from them, what they would prefer?
It's kind of like lighting fixtures that they're looking at too. They look at the pillars, they're all doing the same thing. They're going to take a look at some of those features, if you will,
Okay.
that make kind of Great Island, that's from what they've said.
So I think what we're wondering is, should we be making a decision and then asking them if this fits with what they would like, or do they make the decision between A and B and then we come back to us?
Me personally, in my opinion, I believe we should give them both of those options to look at. Unless there's a strong feeling that one of them is totally way out of bounds for your committee here, that they don't like it or they don't want to see that.
Okay.
But I think both of the approaches give you a couple different options and different looks. And I think that's what ARB is looking for.
Okay, so then they'll make that final decision.
I think they're going to try to guide us.
Okay. All right, so, we talked about this, but I think if you have any strong feelings on A or B or anything else, let me know. Okay?
And I spoke to Monica too after a couple of meetings with EPC and so on. We will get the schedule out to you folks so you know when these meetings are. At least get a chance to watch them and see what they're talking about if you can't be there to support it. So I think that's going to be critical too, to get a feeling for what they're looking for when they go in front of them.
Right, so if you are in town and you can attend these meetings, one of these I'm gonna miss, but I won't miss the rest. That's great, just like coming to the RTM for the traffic circle, it's a good thing to do.
So, no other questions on that one? The last item, something that I was asked to provide two meetings ago or so. It was just kind of a breakdown in the spreadsheet of what we've been spending to run operations on that island. So I had an opportunity to go through everything over the last couple of weeks and put together a very rough spreadsheet of what we're spending on. That includes utility utilities, oil purchases, tree maintenance, landscaping, any purchases like repair items from either Home Depot, any charge. So I've got them all on the list here. I had a chance to come together and get a total. And I'll give you, since May, we've spent close to $230,000 on operations for that island. Before I finalize this, I happened to be able to get into Munis and pull out the revenues for this also, so I could see where we stood. And in comparison to the 230 that we spent, we've brought in 380. So those are the two numbers that I'm looking at right now as go forward. Now, as I get more and more information, I'm going to refine this spreadsheet a little bit more. And if the chair would like me to, I'll get it so that you folks can have an idea of what we're spending on.
The $230,000, do you give a sense of whether, what would be sort of an annual run rate for expenses? Because I suspect part of that is getting started and cleaning up some things, and maybe things that wouldn't be sort of repeated, as opposed to something you have to do initially. To give a sense of what the run rate operating might be. You might want to budget for the coming fiscal year.
That, if you had asked me that, I'd probably look into it a little bit differently. I didn't get into the oil use yet, which is a big number right now. Warming the stables, warming the houses. That is a little bit higher than I thought it would have been, so my prediction would have been off on that one. And the other piece that's going to be important is when we turn around in April and decide how we're going to maintain the property, how it's going to be done, whether it's done in-house or whether it's done with an outside landscaper. Again, that cost is going to be something that, though I can put my finger on what we paid last year, I'm hopeful that we're not paying the same thing next year, and hopefully it's less.
And we are not using the landscaper for the plowing.
We are not. He did not bid the lowest. But we did talk to him about bidding next year and how we run that out and how we compare that to doing it in-house. I'll leave that to town administrator and the first selectman to guide us.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussions of a draft for RFP for the master plan consultant. So we started this discussion, Kate came in and spoke to us about engaging with a consultant to do a master plan for the island. And we have, John and I have talked to earlier, like actually months ago, with Tom Balsey and Wes Stout. That is one, well, Wes Stout is the landscape architect, and Tom Balsey is also in that. And I think you might have heard, or some of you attended the Darien Men's Association, or you saw the tape with Becca Sturgis from Reed. Okay, so John and I and Kate had a conversation with Becca, partner Becca, John Keane, and Scott Gabriel, I think. They're marketing people. So we had a meeting last week, a Zoom meeting, and it was very informative about just kind of a general, like, kind of getting their thoughts on how we go about this. And we came away with a couple of main thoughts. One is that we really need to look at, in the big picture, kind of, as John described it, looking at this as a kind of the natural part of the island, sort of a municipal usage part of the island, and then if there's any kind of a commercial part of the island. So that's the big picture for the plan. But speaking with Becca, we also realized that, and actually Tom Balsey also said this, that when we put this RFP out, what we want to do is make sure we have it sort of tightened up a little bit so that we're not getting 75 or 100 firms, which is very possible. And according to them, not this isn't my opinion. So to do that, we would look at the RFQ, the qualifications. And that would be what the town would require from a firm that was going to do this project. Maybe it's their proximity to Darien, maybe it's how long they've been in business, it's their staff, it's if they've ever worked on the coast, all different metrics like that. So I think that it would be good for us to start this process now, because this whole hiring a consultant, I think, is going to be a lengthy process. And this is something that we can provide input on now, and I would suggest we start moving forward on this. So any thoughts in general on this? John?
Yeah, I mean, both Tom and Wes and then the folks at Retail and Brand, which is Becca's firm, are very impressive. I mean, I came away, these people absolutely know what they're doing. They've done these big projects. It's quite interesting. To just emphasize something Monica said, it's going to be important for us to get this RFQ, RFP process just right, so that we make sure that anybody that we consider is going to ultimately be able to provide us with all the work and support that we need to get this right. And so taking our, I don't want to wait too long, but taking our time to get that right, I think is going to be very beneficial to us in making sure we have the right partner for this project. So getting some focus on this committee on exactly the materials that we use to submit as part of that process, I think will be pretty important.
Do we have a boilerplate contract or
That's my
RFQ?
point.
You know what, so there's kind of two parts to this. So there's the consultant part, the RFP part, right? And Kate is working on that right now. So she is gathering other RFPs from similar projects, and she just got one in today from a project that's that this firm bid on for Hartford that seems sort of similar to ours, larger, but in the same. So there's that part that Kate is working on right now. This other part I want to get going now at the committee level, and I think two people here could be very, very helpful on it, and working with Kate and myself and anybody else that Kate thinks would be helpful. I'd like a couple of volunteers to step forward and get this going. And my timing is, our next meeting is January 17th, and I think it would be helpful if the committee could see your proposal, or some sort of a draft maybe by the 14th, which I realize we're right around the holidays, but we meet monthly, and I want to keep this project moving along. So I'm hoping that time frame works for you. And do you have any volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you.
I've done it before. I would enjoy it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you tell us, Dan and Jeff, a little bit about your background and why you think this would be kind of in your lane?
So I've worked in New York City on construction projects for 40 years, and some very large ones. The ones specific to this project would be the Brooklyn Bridge Park and the Hudson River Park Trust, where we put out RFQs and RFPs to firms, and we had some very large ones there. Signe Nielsen for landscape architect, and Heather Wick out of the UK for the landscape design, and some other firms that I've worked with. So contracts on every job, I've probably done over 1,000 of them probably in my 40 years. So, because every project that you build takes 100 contracts to put together.
I have somebody who'd done 1,500 projects. That
was good.
Well, I may not measure up quite that. I'm guessing I've done a few hundred of them only, but most of mine have been on planning projects. We had a program at the Regional Council in Houston where I worked, where we did urban design plans for, we called them livable centers, sort of mixed-use developments, often had green space elements. My department was also in charge of the environmental functions of the agency, so we did some water quality and wetlands protection type stuff, and have had experience in designing scopes of work and administering the process of selection and all that. So I think it would be a fun project for me.
That's great.
At one point, this an important element of the work that you guys are going to do is sort of curating what we need and what we don't need from these consultants. It's one thing we learned in the call, help understand the property value impacts of neighboring residences to the development that would go on Great Island. I'm not saying we don't do that, but it just struck me as something that would be first on my list. And so going through and thinking about sort of what we need to bid on, so that the request for proposal is quite discreet and says it's this and important, not these things, so that the proposals we get back, we can discuss them as a committee before they go out, really do reflect what we think we're going to need from those consultants. The RFQ can encompass other areas that we might need, but what we want them to bid on is what we think we really will need. One thing that's clear from this call is this won't be cheap. So I think just a tight sort of focus on what we need will help keep those costs under control.
I think that's a great point. Consultants obviously want to have billable hours, and I think really prioritizing that and, kind of identifying what's critical, and maybe there's things that could be augmented by existing studies or even staff work that's going on. So I think that is a really good approach to try to narrowcast it and really get the expertise that, we don't have either in-house or can't access from other materials.
Yeah. So another thing, Jeff, I thought is, so again, we're breaking this out. I'm not asking you to get the RFP done by January 14th. This is just the RFQ portion of it, right? Okay. And you let me know if that time you don't think that's going to work. But another thing, and this, Jeff, you might be really helpful on, is there have to be things that we could be doing right now as a committee that could maybe take off a little bit off of the consultant's plate on what they're doing. And we have a lot of brain power here, and I know people are excited about this project. So maybe keep in the back of your mind different things that we could be working on. If it's some sort of environmental impact study, if that's something we can kick off. You know where I'm going here? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jeff and Dan?
I would just say, we're looking, for an entity that has significant intellectual and creative horsepower, within their bag of tricks, if you will. I mean, we're talking about a public space that we're designing for a lot of different constituencies. It's not a one idea, space. And as I understand a master plan, it's an exciting document. I've been part of colleges that have had master plans that have taken decades, to fulfill. And so the ability to be nimble and forward, thinking. So I just find some people like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'll follow up with you tomorrow. Okay. And next on the item on the agenda is pedestrian access. So we've had, we did the bus tour, and we had about 650 people that were really excited to be on it, and very grateful. And we have about, what are we at, about 20,800 that didn't go on, right? Somewhere in there. So we need to get the rest of our residents onto the island, right? So John mentioned this in his State of the Town, and I think we've all been kind of contemplating how we can do this. So what I wanted to kick off today is discussion on getting pedestrians, getting our citizens onto the island. And this would be before the road is completed, right? So the road, that has penciled out, we have a different calendar. No, I'm just kidding. That has penciled out like July 15th, okay? So that's a ways away. So if we wanted to maybe have it open on the weekends, have it from 8 to 5, have it just pedestrians. I don't know about cyclists because of the cobblestone, but so I wanted to kind of get that conversation going here and gauge your interest in pursuing that.
I think it's a very exciting idea. I think, as with most things, when you go through a process, there may be a lot of public and institutional entities that will come up with reasons to say no, or why it's difficult. But I think it's a terribly important idea, and I think we should try and find ways to say yes to get, some folks on, for limited times and limited, purposes and respectful of the neighbors. But I think it's a, fabulous idea.
I think that's a key part, is respectful of the neighbors, is how do we control or herd them into, specific areas of the park. And parking, of course, is the other issue for, I don't think we want cars deep into the park.
No, there'll be no
No,
cars.
there'll be,
So
This
you
is
walk
just-
from
This is just.
Rings End Road then.
Yeah, this is just walking in.
Yeah.
And before we get too caught up in the, the restrictions, we do have the chair of Park and Rec, I would hope that our two volunteers would work with Lori to come up with kind of the rules and regulations and the pluses and the minuses. And then, again, this is one of those things that I'm hoping that we have two volunteers that step forward and that we have something, I'm telling you now, because just in case you don't have the time, for our next meeting, which is January 17th.
One thing I'd add is that at a Coastal Advisory Commission meeting, Laura, you had a checklist or just a list of things that you reasonably want to address in terms of rules, signs, do's and don'ts, what have you, that was very helpful and I think informed by your commission's experience with our park facilities. And so having that as a starting point to just make sure we've considered all the things that you want to think about before you said, here's the green light, you can come walk or ride a bike on that island, super important. So leveraging that will be critical.
I mean, we could actually take the parks rules document and just go through it section by section, because I think it touches on pretty much anything and everything we've had to address, and just say, this isn't applicable now, yep, we have to think about this.
I mean,
Or
there
whatever.
are, we have tenants, so that's, I mean, there are, and I'm not saying this is, I think we really should look into this deeply, and I would like to see it happen, but I'm not saying that it's, there are definitely things to consider.
I mean, I think we can, certainly a lot of the rules we have for existing town properties and Parks and Rec land can serve as a template. I think we should think about things like, when it's open, what days it's open, whether dogs are allowed, whether at certain hours, where they have to be on leash or off leash. I think if we begin to use that type of matrix and look at it, what's appropriate for the park, and then how does that compare to how we treat other similar parks in town, I think that's probably the right way to go about it.
Exactly.
And I haven't done 1,000 of these, but I'm happy to help.
Well, I think, and I also think we have, we have wildlife on the island, and we have horses. I'm not sure if that's wildlife or not, but okay. So do I have a couple of volunteers?
Yeah, I'll help as well.
Okay. Well, I think we have the two residents right here
Okay.
that we're going to start with, and we're going to keep this sort of small and nimble, but we're going to take feedback at all points. Okay. So are you good, Bruce?
Yeah, I'd be happy
I'd
to.
like to volunteer, yeah, thank you.
Okay, super. Okay,
Runs into the meeting. All right, thanks.
okay. Any other questions on the pedestrian?
Mark, I think it's a good idea. I'll share with the committee, after the tours, the response was tremendous. Everyone heard that. But I've also gotten responses, when are there going to be more tours? To your point, not enough people have gotten access. There is a desire, a demand for access. So I think if we can find a way to do this, it'll be well received.
I think from a timing perspective, if you think about it, we're closing on the purchase of the traffic circle, the modification of the easements, tomorrow morning. So this, I think we can probably make this happen relatively soon after. It feels like this should be we should be able to get something together in terms of January.
Yeah, we'll take a really good look at it. Yeah, so do you think you'll be able to report back to our January meeting? Laura, does that give you enough time? Okay. Okay. Jeff, do you have anything? I didn't put you on the agenda. Do you have anything for communication?
Just briefly, let me get my cheat sheet here. The staff has created a user-friendly URL, www.darien.ct.gov/great-island. Sorry, that was a long one to take down in a hurry, but presumably you've got the first part already, so just Great Island, and that takes people directly to Great Island webpage. The committee has been updated with you as chair, so there's also the links to the agenda, the minutes, the meeting videos, and the presentation, so you can get that in one click now.
Okay, and are the committee members on there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good,
That's great.
that's great.
Let's put that URL in the minutes.
Good idea. Okay.
You spoke about a fax page? Is
Yeah,
it-
I didn't move on that in the short time between the meetings, and I wanted to bring that up to the committee as well. I've been thinking about it some more since last month. I'm wondering if we maybe should forestall that until we have kind of some more information out there to give, because I wouldn't want to put something out and then be updating it again. And I think particularly if we could, have, announcement about the pedestrian facilities and that, we're moving forward on the consultant selection and things like that, that would be a little bit richer list. So I will revisit that with you all maybe a couple meetings hence.
Okay. All right. Great. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, it might be interesting to put a little bit of the history behind Great Island. A little bit of kind of how it was developed, who owned it, and maybe even just some of the factual background in terms of when the town acquired it and so forth.
Yeah, there's some good old photographs there too. I don't know, maybe the Steinkrauses
Yeah.
or the Zieglers would share with us of some of like the big boats that sat at that dock over the decades, and the horses and the riders of those horses, and just so that people can get a flavor for what happened on that island over the 100 years that they owned it, over 100 years.
So that's a great point, Bruce, and I was thinking about you because I know that you're friends with Ned, but, another thing that I'd like us to work on is the historical part of the island. And Ned does he has videos, and he left a lot of photographs there. I would love for somebody to work on that with me, or more than one person. So,
I certainly can help with that. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
I help too.
Okay. That would be, Jeff, you'd be great too, because then you can feed it into the communication. Okay.
So,
A question about the horses now, with the agreement that was made a few months ago, are the horses only in the stable, or are in the rink, or are they moving? Because we need to think about in terms of rules and impact with that. So
Yeah,
can you just refresh us on what the horse rules are right now?
Yeah, I can show you where they can go.
Okay.
But it's basically where they are in the paddocks, with the fenced-in paddocks,
Okay.
and then they can go in the polo field and the old
Dressage,
rink.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
during
they
any
cross-
daylight hours?
They crossing that road, the driveway from the stables, and they walk down the hill to that, yeah. So it's basically line of sight from the stables to those fields.
Correct, correct. They don't have free range on the island.
So that they definitely are
Yes.
going out of the stable,
Yes,
all
and you
right?
know what, we can get you more information on
Okay.
hours, and the stables are open on Monday, so.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking about if we were to consider off-leash dogs, that's, it's the issue we have with Highland, but,
Yeah, dogs would be,
Yeah. I think anyone, I
Yeah.
guess the question is, I'm not sure that you can really allow people to go on if there are times when the horses are walking around. So maybe we need to try to pair this up with like the rules that we're going to propose and hours and so forth to fit with the hours that they're entitled to
Absolutely.
go
Well,
out.
and then I guess we should look probably at other commingled spaces that have equestrian operations on them to see what kind of like arrangement exists on those. I know I can't like think of a lot of them right now. Like, are there still horses ridden in Central Park? There used to be.
Yeah, I worked at Central Park.
Yeah. So, but are they totally segregated from like where the public is, or are they just
No, there's a
like
couple
they're
places you
together?
offload. There's none stored there. It's a couple places you offload, then you can ride the bridle path. There's one bridle path that goes all the way.
But you or I could walk that bridle path and we could just be commingled.
Yes, yeah, and it's very, very rare also.
Yeah.
The horses are walked across that road, right?
No, they're ridden.
They're ridden across, okay.
So this would be something we would start first with Kate and with our insurance. That would be number one, to see where we are in there, and then to see what the hours are for that. And then, taking into consideration, we have a lot of turkeys, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, they're very nice. We have a lot of turkeys, we have fox, we have horses, we have geese, we have
A lot of deer.
people with dogs, we have deer. So we already have a lot of wildlife there. So
Did I think I heard somewhere that the horses all go to Florida for the winter?
there's 6 that stay.
Okay.
Is there someone at the stable that we can communicate with and that's willing to hash some of this out?
Yeah, but you know what? When we did the special permit, it's pretty
thought it was
defined.
Got it.
Right. What we
That's through what date, that agreement?
the special permit. I think it's a
2 years, I
it's a
think I
2
read.
year.
Yeah.
And is the lease signed yet, or?
No, we're working on
Okay. But at least if we're coming up with something that would be from, say, mid-January till the construction starts, because then
that. Right, that'd be something to consider.
if there's only 6 horses on property
Well, but they
for that
come back.
time period. No, I'm just saying if we're looking for some
Right,
interim,
right.
interim pedestrian use until the road, because once the road's open, then it's more permanent.
What
There'll be
was-
more things we need to think about, but if
Yeah.
it's only walkers and there's only 6 horses, that may help, so we can get more information on how that might look.
I think we're gonna have to stop the walkers on May 1st when we start
That's-
construction though.
That's my point, yeah. they
So
will-
that's
yeah.
2.5 month period or whatever.
Right, so is this, let's figure out if this is worth the couple months.
Right.
you know?
Well, I think, Ed, you mentioned when we're working on 23A, there's always going to be half of it that's going to be open generally.
I'm gonna need someplace to get the vehicles in and out.
Yeah.
And it may be a little rough at times because of the location of the current driveway. Trying to leave that active, dig on one side, set up the new road, go back and dismantle the old one. It's gonna be a little rough.
You're worried about horses, think about construction traffic up and down.
Yeah.
So it might be that during construction,
It's closed.
right, and so let's consider is that, how's that gonna go over?
And maybe it's only open on the weekends when the contractor's not working, and part of his contract is I need a safe access for both pedestrians and vehicles, the vehicles that go on the property
Yeah.
as they're supposed to.
Yeah, when John and I were talking about this, we were kicking around on the weekends only, and only pedestrian.
And anyone who walks around the city of New York discovers that there are ongoing construction projects with pedestrian passageways.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do it safely, but, to your point, that, there's no construction work on a weekend, that's a prime time, and we're looking at, some limited access, so, people can get a sense of pride and ownership on it. So there's probably the least restrictive means of doing that.
I feel like we need to think about whether we'd be limiting where in the island they can go, because I think that's very, sort of functionally very difficult to do versus if it's just the hours that they can go on.
Right.
And Jim, to your point, we do have people that live there, and trying to keep people that are walking on the island away from the homes where these people live, that's going to be something else that we should be looking at and considering.
It would be helpful to have information on that specifically.
The
Make sure
location.
it's right, yeah.
I think the leases stipulated, if I recall from the reading, the space that they're entitled to is basically like inside the 4 walls. So that it's not like they're leasing property, if you will, outside of the actual structures.
Yeah,
That being said.
but we have to be careful, like,
Right.
someone shouldn't just take a rest on somebody's front stoop, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
sitting on the
Maybe
step.
that-
Or even
that
their
we have
front
something
yard.
where
Yeah,
you don't approach homes within 20 yards.
since we don't have benches yet,
There's a
just-
concept of quiet enjoyment that they're going to be entitled to. How that's defined,
Yeah.
I'm sure varies. But
But I think we're all on the same page, as like, you know, the townspeople are paying a ton of money to acquire this place, and we as a group want to get them onto that property as soon as we can in a safe fashion, and we're working, we'll set out on that with the glass half full, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we'll make our best efforts to get them to be able to use it.
Are there no parking signs on Rings End Road?
Yeah, I think so.
Are there any? I don't know.
There's not really many places to park.
Yeah, there's not much.
No,
room in most of it.
I know, but I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
it
it
would be-
past the lower harbor entrance?
I don't know if there's any on the side by like the burnt out telephone pole, but you know that telephone pole that's like half burnt through?
Yeah. People park there all the time.
Yep.
Really?
They parked there?
Park there.
You're talking about the little cutout? I'm not sure.
No, it's like if you're going up Rings End Road,
Yep.
right by the bottom
Oh,
Harbor
okay,
Road,
I know what you're
there's a
saying.
telephone pole
Yeah.
that's sistered up.
I know what you're, yep.
And I think a wire came down on it and burned into the pole. And it's like, and
Yeah.
there's a sister pole there that's, you know, it's not a danger, but it's just, I always notice it when I
I've
walk,
not seen
when I
that
drive by or
Take
walk
it
by.
across this, Kittick corner across the street.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
good
what I was
point.
thinking.
As we begin to open
Yeah.
this up, we should probably just make sure that it's where you can and can't park is labeled well.
I mean, if we can do some kind of interim program over the winter and early spring, you would hope the most likely scenarios that people would go park at Pear Tree and walk over. But
Yeah.
there are those couple little spots after you make the right turn onto
Yep.
Pear Tree Point Road that people do park in now.
The junction of Long Neck and, yeah.
Junction Long, or people are going to park on Long Neck, so it's something we, need to think about. People
So
try to find a way to get as close as possible and park and then walk on.
So I'm hoping that you'll come up with a list of, everything that you considered and what your recommendations are, and then as a group, we'll discuss it
Yeah.
as a whole. Okay. Anything else you want to discuss? Okay. Well, you missed, I thanked you for all your help on the cul-de-sac. And
Tomorrow.
I'm really excited for 2024. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Minutes?
And a Happy
Yes.
Christmas.
Minutes?
Oh, yes. Review and approve. Any adjustments, corrections, amendments?
I sent Linda a reply that I attended the meeting, but my name's omitted, so
Okay.
she'll add that.
Just a handful of sort of grammatical things, I can just give them to you.
Great.
Just like it says, Mr. Gentile discussed the schedule, but it doesn't say just things like that, a couple little typos.
This kind of ties into our previous discussion, but it says Mr. Flaherty said they may need to consider how they're going to brand the island, and it doesn't really specify they.
Yeah.
Thought
I think that was one of the things I
Oh,
picked
okay,
up, yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Is anyone here interested in taking the minutes?
Jaws drops.
After that whole episode, no.
Does it make sense on some of our other boards and so forth, they've kind of boiled down the minutes to only, attendance and who factually, like actions we've actually taken in terms of things we voted on or.
Because there's video record that
Because
is
of
on
video
demand.
record. Just a thought in terms of.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, this is a service that we use, and we can talk to you about that, for sure.
Yeah, we dialed them back on the Board of Finance just to get to more,
Right.
voted on this, passed this, did that.
What does everybody think of that?
I'm okay with it. Because it's on YouTube. I believe YouTube does AI closed captioning, which is searchable, I think. So even if you were saying like you were looking for a certain word, like parking, I think you would potentially be able to find more through YouTube than you could find in our minutes.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's a fine idea. I know that we've had some issues sometimes with communication with TV 79, some meetings not getting, picked up if there was a snafu with scheduling or whatnot. So we would certainly want to know perhaps if there was a meeting, and we always know if 79's not there, that we take more robust minutes in those circumstances to make sure that we're covered.
That's a good
But-
point, yeah.
I personally read the minutes, so, or maybe we'll compromise.
Yeah, it's whoever's
Yeah.
taking them.
Personally, I think that length's about right. It's not every he said,
Yeah.
she said, whatever, but just a quick sentence or two on the key,
Right.
kind of the key topics and then actions. And yeah, so, I mean, I love 79, we rely on them so heavily, but, they did have one night this past year where they just couldn't get somebody, and then one night they thought they lost the tape. Thank God they found it, and then, because then we were like, oh, So you become very reliant on them, and if then something happens.
Okay, so we'll kind of stick with sort of what we have here. We'll just try to correct the typos. Okay, anything else? May I have a motion to approve with the amendments made? Mike moves, Lori seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, anything else? No? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Mike moves, Mark seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.